Hello, I'm Tom Martin, and welcome to another episode of A San Francisco Conservative, the new podcast series featuring yours truly, Tom Martin. I'm a lifelong journalist, produce stories for Diane Sawyer at Good Morning America and for Charles Kuralt at CBS Sunday Morning and many other stops along the way. I love asking thought-provoking questions. I love learning new information, especially about government and history and economics. And so we're in the perfect place for that. My co-host and man of the hour is my friend David Parker in San Francisco. David is the author of two amazing books, Income and Wealth and A San Francisco Conservative. Hey, David, how are you today?
Good morning, Tom. Fine.
Great.
It's a nice day. Ask me a question.
I'm ready. I have a question. Yes, sir. So one bit of good news is it's interesting. I'll make a confession right here. In many presidential elections, I've voted for the Democratic candidate, and I covered politics for CBS News in Washington for a number of years, even going to the White House during the first Bush administration. And so I'm sort of a political news junkie. And so the Democrats are trying to feel hopeful right now, getting certain legislation through and so on. And at the time we're recording this, there was a recent announcement that thousands, if not millions, perhaps, but probably thousands or hundreds of thousands of college graduates are going to have their massive college loans written off by the government, whether it's $10,000 or $20,000. What do you think of that idea?
I was a student, so I know what it is to have student debt, but I essentially worked my way through college. Even though I came from a family that could afford it, one, it didn't cost as much in the 1960s as it does today. And so I'm sympathetic to students with debt, but we have debt. I mean, the cost of education is so high today because there's so much government intervention in the university system that it's like healthcare. It's 3 or 4 times what it costs anywhere else in the world. Our college system costs 3 or 4 times what it costs anywhere else in the world. So do we compensate by just paying for the students? And that kind of seems wrong. You're not solving the problem. And an element of fairness is that, yes, government created it, so now maybe government owes students a little bit, relieves some of that debt. I mean, perhaps the state should pay for education up to a point. And to be fair, maybe they should go back and find every student who has high debt and let them apply for it. Don't just do the last 3 years worth of students when many students are paying off that debt honestly, and they don't get off the hook. And if they don't do that, that means that was a political move by the president to do that. And unfortunately, that's what politicians do. They say what they think will get them votes and not consider the consequences or not think it through all the way. You know, healthcare is real high, and so we just add more government programs, Affordable Care Act, and increase Medicare payments. And that's not solving the problem. It's just relieving the problem, but not solving the problem. It's not going to lower the price. So it's wrong. Government should not be in the economy at all. And then prices will be half or 2/3 lower. That's one of my main themes. I guess the second main theme is that the middle class, hardworking, honest people are paying for all of this. It's coming out of their taxes, or it's coming out in prices, or it's coming out in increased national debt. It's all the same. It will be accounted for someday.
Do you think, I don't know if this is somewhat related, but do you think we're headed for a recession? I mean, again, if we're just piling on national debt, billions of dollars for these, to pay off these college loans, is that a recipe for disaster?
Not necessarily. When interest rates are low, you can keep piling on debt because you're not making any payments. And interest rates have been rising, but they're not real high. Nevertheless, they're not real high. So we can afford it. But just take, if our budget deficit is 4 trillion or some number like that. And if our national debt is 30 trillion, something like that, apply an 8% interest rate for 30 trillion. That's 3.2. That's practically our whole, we're making our budget deficit from 4 to 7.3 every year. We're increasing our national debt.
Yeah, I
It
think
doesn't sound good to me.
Yeah.
Do the math. Doesn't sound good.
Right. I think I heard a comedian one time say the national debt is a way to get our grandchildren to invest in their past or something like that. So, doesn't sound very fair. That's for
I
sure.
like that. That's a good expression.
So while young people, hopefully they won't get the message, oh, I'm let off the hook. Great. Thank God for the government. Are there certain things you think young people, people in their 20s, college age or recent college graduates should be aware of when it comes to the economy? You just told us to beware of politicians. That's one. But are there some other, fundamentals that they benefit from really being aware of?
Well, if they're really aware, for example, they can, there are timeless laws in my writing, Income and Wealth. One of my themes is that the laws of economics are timeless, that the interest rate on savings is 1 to 2%. We're going back to Babylon, 6,000 years. The rate on a mortgage is 2 to 3, and venture capital, money at risk, is 3 to 5. And anybody who thinks they're earning or they're going to receive more than that will go broke if they go into business thinking that there's more profit than that. And in an efficient market, there's zero profit because firms compete and they compete and drive profit down, and high CEO salaries are entrepreneurial compensation. That's not profit. And and even nonprofits, some of those CEOs are making very big $100 million salaries. And you have to know these truths, or you're going to go into business and go broke. You're going to think you're going to get 10% or 15% return. Those returns do not exist.
Yeah, no, it's important to keep in mind. I just want to pause.
That's my lesson to young people. You better know the timeless truth, or you're going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Cryptocurrency might be a mistake. There's no reference in the history of the world. That's a good counter argument to cryptocurrency. There's no precedence. Right.
Yeah. No, good point. Certainly. I just want to throw in, if you're watching or listening midstream, just joining us, this is a San Francisco Conservative, the new podcast series featuring me, Tom Martin, a lifelong journalist asking the questions, and my colleague, David Parker, who's author of Income and Wealth and a San Francisco Conservative. That's the title of his latest book. And so we're talking about young people, the forgiveness of college loans and so on, and fundamentals that people just starting out in the workforce should really know about. And David, I can't resist asking about, your own back to school career. Why did you go back to school? What led you in that direction?
Well, some people go to school to learn how to make money. I went to school to see how I did it. I can't believe I did it. You can't learn basic business in school. It's in the streets. I think Andrew Carnegie says you have to start from the bottom. And I say, if you go to school and get an MBA, you're going to want to start in the middle because you have so much effort put into there. You're not going to want to start in the mailroom or start sweeping the floors and if you start in the middle, you will never rise to the top. You have to learn everything from personal experience. Yeah. You're working in the mailroom, who's getting the letters? If you're sweeping the floors, who's coming in early and who's coming in late? And then he says, just don't stay there. Go up, keep moving up. Don't hang out in those low jobs. But you're not going to make it to the top unless you know everything. Mm-hmm. The basic laws of money and business. And Carnegie says, don't go to college. if you want to make a fortune, because fortunes are made very quickly anyway. Just when your mind is fresh and fertile. If you're a mathematician, your best years are when you're 18, 19, and 20. Don't be going to school, study math.
Don't.
Make your fortune, then you can go back to school. So that's kind of what I did. I went back to school afterward and took 67 units of math and economics straight.
Amazing, amazing. So speaking of Andrew Carnegie, I remember you were telling me recently that you read a biography of Andrew Carnegie, the richest man in the world, who built wealth really from nothing. I mean, amazing story. And I think what you were saying about that particular book was that it illustrated one of the flaws of a lot of business writing, textbooks, and maybe financial journalism. You know better than I, but is it when you're reading textbooks for business subjects and reading financial news, do you get the sense that sometimes the writers are not in touch with how the world really works? You know, you're out there in the trenches, as I like to say.
Almost by definition, as a person who has made money, I could never write a textbook. So if somebody's writing a textbook, even economics or money, that person is not a business person. Because if you're rich, why would you be writing a textbook? You're through that. You're bored with that. So that person is learning himself. That person finds it interesting writing that textbook. Oh, look at this. I didn't know that about economics. So by definition, if you're an academic writing on business, you probably don't know anything about business, or not enough that qualifies you as being really deeply knowledgeable. You know something. And I read a book on Andrew Carnegie, 800 pages with footnotes, and the person brought up everything I needed to know for me to make my decisions, which were completely foreign to what that book was talking about. That author did not know who Andrew Carnegie was, yet he wrote 800 pages on him. But he just somehow said enough that I latched onto this, latched onto that, and made my own conclusions. That author has no idea why Andrew Carnegie made so much money. And I'll tell you right now, he said during a downturn in the economy, don't stop production. It's like if you're saving money for a project to buy some real estate or make an investment, don't stop saving because you have a debt or because some family member is ill. You just postpone your debts and keep that program. And Andrew Carnegie did not stop production when the economy, and all the other firms who couldn't keep going because they weren't getting orders, he bought them up. He didn't become wealthy because he was a union buster or a monopolist. He has ended up owning every steel mill.
Do you see something comparable there? I mean, you're there in San Francisco, the Silicon Valley, a mecca of business, and so on. We're going through, hopefully coming out of the pandemic phase right now. But have you seen that also? Certain business owners who are determined, have that quality of persistence versus, throwing in the towel or panicking. Have you seen that play out there in the Bay Area?
Well, I've been here long enough to go through several downturns, .com, SNL crisis, and I've seen real estate vacant during some of those downturns. And I realized who the tough owners were. They just boarded them up. It's just wait it out. Don't sell, and maybe use that moment to buy more when people can't hold on. And right now, you think the office market might be a place to make a purchase. You go downtown San Francisco, I guess you go downtown in any major city, and there's a lot of vacancies, and there's not a lot of people walking around. People are working from home more and more, but that may not last completely like that. So this might be a time to speculate on an office building and make apartments of it for a while until you can until the market comes back. But don't be so quick to sell those buildings.
Yeah.
Renegotiate the debt if you have to.
We just have a few minutes left, and so I can't resist maybe taking a bit of a turn here in the conversation to speak about vacancies. I came across a news story recently saying, maybe it was in New York City, perhaps, saying that hotel owners and motel owners with vacancies, they should be using those rooms for the homeless. I know you've written about the homeless. What do you think of that idea?
Temporary solutions are one thing, but that's not solving the homeless problem, because what if the economy comes back? Then those homeless people are back out in the street again. That's not a bad temporary solution. You have all these units and all these people, we'll put them together. I'm sure the hotel guests would just love it. But you have to label a problem correctly. And if you really label a problem correctly, the solution is almost in the labeling.
I've heard some, it's interesting. A friend of mine is a business coach, young man, but he seems very bright. And he often speaks about his mentor, a fellow by the name of Keith Cunningham, who's been very successful in business. And he talks about the importance of thinking time. And both of these gentlemen say, you really need to make time in your schedule to think things through. And if you want financial success, it really depends on the questions you ask. I mean, there's a lot of, like you mentioned that biographer of Andrew Carnegie. Apparently, there were some questions that never even occurred to him to ask. But as you said, in the 800 pages, all the information was laid out there. So you knew useful questions to ask. Is there something to that in terms of being successful in business?
Yeah. All the great businesses are usually one person anyway. Musk and Bezos, Warren Buffett, or Gates, or Zuckerberg, they knew what their business was about. And they're enormously successful. They really know what their business is about, not what they advertise with what their business is, what their business really is. So any problem has to be labeled. You have to take time to think of it. But homelessness, for example, what is homelessness? It's people who are dying and they come to the city and they lay down on the sidewalk and wait to die. That's homelessness. They're not waiting for some social services to pick themselves up again and get back into life. Those people are not doing that. And there's very few who, yes, just because you lost your job, you don't become homeless. You have to make a pile of mistakes in a row to become homeless. You might have a friend you can live with for a while until you get a job or something, but you don't become homeless just because you lost your job.
Yeah. No,
so these people are not, so you just, the law, there should be a law. You cannot lay down and die and crap in the sidewalk. If you, the city should say you have to keep moving. And then people say, well, where to where? To the outskirts of town. To the outskirts of town, there's probably factories and military bases. Just set up barracks and tents, and maybe we'll make little private rooms and provide some food and clothing if you need to, even some social service, but not right in front of people's doors, in front of stores, in front of people's houses, on the sidewalk. They're all in San Francisco. It's really bad. It really is. It has a reputation now. You walk down the street, you're stepping over people. That should not be allowed, period.
Let's continue our conversation in a couple minutes, because I think this is quite an interesting subject. And I think it illustrates, I mean, you can tell me if you would agree, but I think this illustrates what you've written and said about the progressives. They say, we have a great heart. We really care. To be honest, I enjoy checking out videos on TikTok, one of the new social media platforms. And one person on TikTok has been posting a series of little videos. He must be very wealthy, and I'm sure a good-hearted man. I know you're a good-hearted man, David. And so someone's filming the video sequence, and he comes up to a homeless person, maybe sitting on a park bench, and said, what do you need today? Well, I need a job, or I need a meal. And he gives him an envelope. It's, $500 or $1,000 and a note. You can do it. And it's very, it's very inspiring. It's very touching. I'm sure people, especially younger folks watching these videos, like, that's so nice. And it is nice, but it's interesting that kind of is a jolt to many homeless people. Apparently, I mean, it's not for me to judge, I guess, but that, like, they've never really considered, I can get my life back on track. Wow, I never even considered that possibility. And so when we talk about progressives, have a heart, let's bail them out, let's bail them out. Maybe the right thing is to say, you can do it. I mean, I know as a teacher, you told young children, you can do it. Just what are your thoughts about all that?
If someone gives a $1,000 envelope to a homeless, that person is probably a conservative. Progressives just wouldn't do that. They would call a government service, come pick up that person and provide him what he needs for the rest of his life. Conservative would say, here, I'm going to give you some relief. Now get your life back together. You can do it. That would be a conservative who would do that, something like that.
Yeah.
Progressives have no solutions. They only think of throwing money at a problem and walking away, thus easing their conscience.
And I guess I'm generalizing a little bit, but it certainly seems like the progressives will paint the conservatives, with a brush, saying you don't care, you're heartless, and it's not really what we're talking about here, I guess.
Yeah, we care. We just don't care about throwing money at problems. That's not heartless. That's reason.
Yeah.
That's reason.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation. I think we're out of time for this one, so look forward to continuing it when we meet again.
Sure.
I just remind our viewers and our listeners to be sure to visit David's website, davidparkeressays.com, where you can purchase copies of Income and Wealth and A San Francisco Conservative, or you can go right to Amazon. So thanks, David. It was great speaking with you.
Thank you, too.
Thank
See you soon.